You ever have one of those mornings where the coffee's hot, the air's crisp, and for half a second it feels like peace might actually last? Yeah, me neither. I pulled into the gravel driveway of my late brother's old lake cabin expecting exactly that kind of peace. Maybe skip rocks, write a few thoughts down for David, let the water do its quiet thing. But what I got instead, a war zone. His memorial garden, 20 years of lavender solar lights, that little bird statue he carved when the chemo got real bad, flattened, smashed, like someone had gone out of their way to stomp every last trace of him into the dirt. I froze. Didn't even take a step closer. Just stared like maybe if I blinked enough it'd undo itself. But then I remembered. David had a camera rigged under the cabin's eaves. Said he didn't trust the friendly neighbors ever since the HOA got new leadership. So I rushed inside, fired up his dusty old desktop, and pulled the footage. It was like watching someone kick you in the stomach in slow motion. There they were. 5 kids, maybe early 20s, hauling in speakers and coolers, blasting music like the lake was their personal frat house. One of them, bleach blonde, loud shirt half open like he was starring in his own music video, was clearly the ringleader. He barked orders, laughed the loudest, and when I watched myself walk up to them around 9:30 and ask politely, "Mind you, if they could just keep it down," he looked me dead in the eye and said, "This is HOA common land, old man. You want quiet? Go back to the city." I didn't fight. I didn't scream. Just shook my head and walked back to the porch. Figured maybe they were just dumb kids. Until the part where Bleach Blonde turned to his buddies and said loud enough for the camera mic to pick it up, "Watch this, guys. Time to teach the old man a lesson." And then he walked over and stomped my brother's memorial garden to pieces while his friends cheered. I watched it twice just to be sure I wasn't imagining the malice. Nope. Every flower, every light, every memory crushed under his sneakers. But that's not even the worst part, because in the background of that same footage, hidden behind some trees, there was a black Mercedes, half covered, just visible enough. And the license plate matched the kind folks in this county usually put on their high-end show-off vehicles. I took a screenshot and marched over to my neighbor Henry's place. Now Henry's older than dirt and twice as sharp. He's lived here longer than anyone grows vegetables year-round and knows exactly who's who around the lake. I showed him the image. He squinted, gave a slow nod, and said, "That's Patricia's car. Patricia Moreno, president of the HOA. Bleach-haired menace is her son, Julian." Real chip off the old block, huh? And I'm standing there still holding my phone, realizing this wasn't just teenagers being dumb. This was Patricia, the woman who claims to protect this neighborhood, letting her kid trash my brother's memory for sport. It all started to click. The smug way she always spoke at HOA meetings, the way she reminded us about community regulations like she wrote the damn Constitution. Her kid didn't just stumble onto my land. He knew exactly where he was. And Patricia. She was in the trees watching it go down. I barely slept that night. Next morning, I carved a wooden sign, "Private property, please respect," stained it myself, made sure it looked proper, and placed it right at the edge of the lakefront. 2 days later, I get a violation notice in the mail from the HOA. Turns out Patricia fined me $500 for unauthorized signage interfering with scenic harmony, citing something called Section 12C. I read it 3 times, couldn't believe the absurdity. Henry just shook his head when I showed him. "She's playing the long game," he muttered. "She's been doing this for years, pushing people out one fine at a time until they sell cheap, and guess who accidentally picks up the property at a steal?" I wanted to scream. Instead, I poured a drink, sat by the lake, and stared at the shattered bird statue. Then came the bottle. A literal glass bottle thrown through the front window, shattered glass across the floor with a note tied to it in black marker. 24 days left, old man. We'll keep partying here until you're gone. Julian. I knew then this wasn't just harassment. It was coordinated. It was strategic. Patricia wasn't just running the HOA, she was running a shakedown. But I had one thing she didn't count on: old survey maps. David had kept everything, and when I dug into his records, what I found made my jaw drop. Our family didn't just own the cabin. We owned the lake, the lakefront. And most of the surrounding woods, the very spots Patricia had been claiming were common recreational zones. She'd been bluffing. And worse, she'd built her entire power trip on stolen assumptions. So I drafted an email, professionally calmly attached scans of the survey, and sent it to the HOA board. Subject line: immediate cessation of unauthorized trespassing. I gave them 72 hours to respond. And that's when Patricia called the cops. Officer Delgado showed up just as I was finishing my second cup of coffee on the porch. Calm morning birds chirping, shattered window still boarded up with duct tape and a prayer. He stepped out of the patrol car with a clipboard in one hand and a notepad in the other that just doing my job looked already plastered across his face. Patricia was right behind him, dressed like she was headed to a charity gala, high heels digging into gravel, holding a manila envelope like it was a sword of truth. "Good morning," she said to the officer, oozing fake warmth. "I'm so sorry to bring you out here, but this neighbor's been making threats and denying access to what's legally community property. It's become hostile." Delgado looked at me, then at the handmade wooden sign, then back at her. I could see the gears turning. He didn't want to be here. He didn't want to touch this mess. But he had to write something down. She handed him the envelope. "We've already commissioned an independent appraisal. The HOA board is moving forward with a forced purchase of the lakefront cabin. This land is better used for community benefit than personal sentiment." I didn't say a word. I just stepped inside, grabbed the original 1987 survey and laid it out on the porch railing. "You might want to compare that appraisal with this," I said. "This is the deeded boundary, notarized, recorded, and predating the HOA by over 2 decades. Delgado squinted at the map, and I swear I saw something shift in his posture. Maybe it was confusion, maybe it was guilt, but he nodded, folded the survey carefully, and said, "I'll add this to my report." That should have ended it. But Patricia wasn't done. The next 2 weeks were hell. Violation after violation. I got fined for hanging a towel over the railing, textile obstruction of lakeside aesthetics. $50. Got cited for placing a chair too close to the shoreline. Another $75. Even Henry, poor old Henry, got hit with a notice accusing him of unauthorized tomato trellises. It wasn't just pettiness. It was strategy. She was building a paper trail, a bureaucratic battering ram, one that could justify seizing my property without needing a court battle. And just when I thought I was cornered, when the $75,000 forced purchase offer arrived with a deadline and a veiled threat of additional legal consequences, Henry dropped the match that lit the fire. He came over with a folder, one he'd been compiling for months, maybe years, full of HOA financial records, budget reports, and payment slips. And right there in black and white, $47,000 paid to a landscaping company called Lakeside Renewal LLC for community stonework. Registered address, Patricia Moreno's house. Another $12,000 for shoreline beautification, supposedly a project to restore the lake banks for everyone's enjoyment. But when we walked the perimeter together, nothing. Not one new stone, not 1 inch of erosion control. She wasn't just overreaching, she was embezzling, and now we had her. So I called for an emergency HOA board meeting. Henry backed me. So did 3 other neighbors who'd gotten fed up, but were too scared to speak up until now. That night, the community hall was packed. You could cut the tension with a butter knife. Patricia stood at the front like nothing was wrong, her usual plastic smile in place until I wheeled out the projector and clicked play. Slide 1 security footage of Julian, her son, smashing David's memorial garden, laughing as he said, "Teach the old man a lesson." You could hear the gasps in the room. Someone whispered, "That's our HOA president's kid." Another said, "Is this real?" Slide 2. The original survey clearly showing my family owned the lakefront and cabin free and clear. Slide 3, the business registration for Lakeside Renewal with Patricia Moreno's name and home address. The room erupted. People shouting questions, demanding refunds, audits, resignations. Patricia tried to deflect. "This is a personal attack. This man's trying to destroy our community." But then I clicked to the final slide, a scanned invoice showing the HOA had paid $12,000 for shoreline repairs. That never happened. Someone in the back yelled, "Where's our money, Patricia?" That was it. The mask cracked. "Fine," she screamed, slamming her hand on the table. "You think this place runs itself? You think I did all this for fun? You're welcome for the damn fence around my yard." Yeah, that happened. Next morning, she resigned in disgrace. 2 weeks later, she was indicted for fraud, misuse of HOA funds, and get this, witness intimidation. I got a formal apology from the new board. They threw a small ceremony by the lake, rebuilt David's memorial garden, added a bench, planted new lavender, even engraved a plaque in memory of David, loved, respected, never forgotten. 6 months later, I got a letter from Patricia's lawyer. She was suing me for defamation and emotional distress from county jail. I framed it. Sometimes, winning doesn't mean getting even. Sometimes it means standing still, letting the wind hit your face, hearing the lake ripple, and knowing no one, no HOA, no bully in designer heels will ever take this piece from you again. But hey, I've got a question for you. Was I wrong to fight back the way I did? Did I go too far or not far enough? Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you stand with the rules or with the people who remember why the land matters in the first place? And if this reminded you of your HOA horror story, you know what to do. Drop it below. We're all ears.